Welcome to Speaking Holistically, the podcast that explores the power of alternative medicine, natural healing, and homeopathic solutions to help you achieve true wellness. Each week, Dr. Jen and Amy G dive into the world of holistic health, discussing researched, time-tested remedies with expert insights from Dr. Jen, as well as real-life stories from patients to empower you to take charge of your health. So if you're ready to embrace a more natural path to wellness, let's start speaking holistically, because true healing begins from within. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Speaking Holistically. I'm your co-host, Amy G, here with my amazing co-host, Dr. Jen. And this is a Family Health Hub episode, and we are covering an interesting topic today that most people probably don't even think about or realize, which is drugs that gobble up vitamins. So we're going to cover three today: cholesterol-lowering medications, antacids, and anti-inflammatories. So Dr. Jen, why don't you take us through, let's say, we'll do cholesterol-lowering medications first.
Okay, so a lot of people are familiar with Lipitor, Zocor, stuff like that. Those cholesterol-lowering drugs deplete storages of nutrients in our bodies. And most of the other countries in the world, if they are taking a cholesterol-lowering drug, there will be a notification, a warning on the label itself saying this drug depletes and lowers this, so supplement with this. The United States doesn't require that, and most people don't realize that. So in one turn, they're taking a medication that they think is helping them, and it may be, but it's also making other things worse, or the same thing potentially worse, because they're depleting their body of these necessary nutrients for functioning. So with the cholesterol lowering drugs, CoQ10 is a big one, and CoQ10 is an enzyme that helps our cardiovascular system. There's a whole host of different things our body does with it, but basically in a nutshell, that's what it does. So you're taking a drug to help your cardiovascular system, and then at the same time, you're depleting a nutrient that's absolutely necessary for it. So if your doctor hasn't talked to you about it, that'd definitely be something that I would consider. CoQ10 is often bound with other things like vitamin E or other fats, basically, that will help the body utilize that CoQ10 better. So CoQ10 is a big one. Vitamin E is another one. Selenium, zinc, and copper. Those are the big guys, but really it can go much deeper than that depending on what you're taking. So that's something that you may want to look up. Nutrient deficiencies, maybe Google that. Nutrient deficiencies, and put, related to taking this specific pharmaceutical. It also can deplete some of the other bigger minerals. So I know selenium, zinc, and copper, but it also can be iron, it can be calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and zinc, and then definitely B vitamins for a whole host of other cholesterol-lowering drugs as well. And we'll kind of move into that and explain a little bit more of the different B vitamins when we get into some of the other pharmaceuticals. So there are things that we can do. The whole food supplements that I generally use is from Standard Process, and the magnesium lactate is one of my favorites that I use from them. It is a magnesium that is not going to cause loose bowels, and some people in here listening are like, dang it, I need something that loosens my bowels a little bit. And we can get into that. You can try an Easy Mag from them. We've gone over that in another podcast, but it's a plant-based multi-form magnesium. And so that one will tend to help the bowels a little bit more, but the magnesium lactate, every magnesium gets absorbed differently and does different things for our body. So we can't just keep giving the same magnesium over and over and over and over and over and expect all of our magnesium deficiencies to not be there. But in this case, specifically with cholesterol lowering drugs, the magnesium lactate tends to work pretty well for that. Supporting the liver with something called Livaplex, Livaplex, Livaplex. And you can also do garlic. Garlic is high in sulfur, so it does open the liver detox pathways and helps the body a little bit more with some of these medications. Some fish oils will absolutely help, but Standard Process also has a product called Cellular Vitality, and that is full of CoQ10. So you can do a whole food based, and we'll put that in the show notes too, so that people have options, because I know this is so confusing. There's so much information. But really what it comes down to is CoQ10 absolutely should be, in most situations, I'm going to put that as a caveat, but be supplemented with the proper CoQ10. So sometimes if you go to, I'm not going to name any stores, but some drugstore locally that has the cheapest form that you can find, probably not going to be complete and probably not going to absorb it as well. Not saying you won't, but sometimes we get symptoms from some of these pharmaceuticals, and it's because of the depletion of these nutrients from those pharmaceuticals. So magnesium lactate, I would absolutely do some sort of vitamin E, absolutely CoQ10, and a lot of the B vitamins, folate, not folic acid. I wouldn't take folic acid, I would take folate. And, we'll go through that and see if we can find a supplement that has most of the stuff in there so that people only have to take one thing instead of trying to find 15 different bottles to balance that out.
Okay. Excellent. I love that this is one of the ones you're choosing to cover first, because I know so many people that take something for high cholesterol, and I'm sure they're going to be surprised to find that what they're taking is gobbling up some of the vitamins that they don't take right now that they need to supplement. So very helpful. Now, what about anti-inflammatories?
So there's the NSAIDs, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, which are like Advil, Aleve, Motrin, Naproxen, Voltaren. Those all are those NSAIDs. They do permanent kidney and liver damage every time you take them, and you can go look that up. That is specifically from the pharmaceutical companies. So if you're taking that every day, you definitely need to be supporting that liver for sure, and those kidneys, drinking plenty of water, and potentially taking milk thistle or something of the like, okay? But what they do is they deplete vitamin C levels, and it's not just ascorbic acid. People go buy ascorbic acid out the drugstore again, and they go, oh, I'm getting vitamin C. I'm like, sort of. So ascorbic acid isn't vitamin C. It's not the vitamin C complex, even though they'll put vitamin C on the label. So you want a vitamin C with bioflavonoids, something that is the entire vitamin C complex is what's hepatoprotective, protects your liver. Vitamin C is going to be really important for when you're taking those anti-inflammatories. Folate is another one. Folic acid for people who have MTHFR, which 60% it's estimated of the population has this genetic variant called methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase, and it's an enzyme that doesn't get manufactured appropriately to break down folic acid into folate. So we want to take a folate instead of a folic acid. Iron, and most people will take iron that is very constipatory. I encourage different types of iron, especially food-based. So I'll tell patients like Ferrofood from Standard Process is a great option because it is food-based. There are some other ones that are herbal that are on, Mary Ruth has one for sure. And there's
Ferrofood spelled? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. How is Ferrofood?
Okay, it's Ferro and then food, FOOD. So that's a good source. But I always tell people if you can get your iron-rich foods up, if you like red meat, make sure you're eating a little bit more of that. Obviously, clean, healthy sources, not from somewhere or that sort of a thing. You want to make sure that you're getting clean sources that if you're going to do that, but iron-rich foods are going to be really important. Vegetables tend to have some good sources of iron as well. If you're constipated from your iron, you're missing something or you're not taking the right type of iron. Also, potassium gets depleted by the NSAIDs. So if you have a decrease of iron, decrease of potassium, you're going to tend to have more leg cramps, generally speaking. So potassium, I use potassium gluconate. There's really no toxicity level for that because the kidneys process it so quickly. You're not going to take 5,000, milligrams of it a day. So I don't know a single person that would do that. Now, if you're taking potassium chloride, which is a pharmaceutical, that's usually what they give as a pharmaceutical potassium, that can cause heart damage and some other things taken at higher doses. So you just have to be careful with that. So I'll give plenty of potassium to patients and they'll call me, my friend said, if I do that, it'll hurt my heart. I'm like, no. It's potassium chloride that can do that. Potassium gluconate generally doesn't. There's differences in the potassium. It's not just one type. So also in part of the anti-inflammatories are steroids. So cortisone, getting cortisone injections, prednisone, taking that, right? Mm-hmm. Decadron, stuff like that. That will also deplete the selenium, like we talked about, the folate that we talked about, the vitamin C that we talked about, but it also depletes vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, and selenium on top of what the other NSAIDs will, deplete. Once again, finding a multi-mineral may not be a bad idea if it's the right minerals. We'll get into vitamin D a little bit more because some people just think that they can throw, a ton of vitamin D in themselves and their body's going to use it. And a lot of times genetically people need a vegan-based vitamin D instead of what they're getting. So we'll get into vitamin D another day because it's a whole conversation. But at least if you've got something at home, go ahead and take it. You don't need to take 10,000 IU. That can overload your liver. I would start slow and steady and just do that. But basically getting a multi-mineral in, including the zinc, the proper amounts of calcium, not calcium carbonate, which is chalkboard chalk, magnesium lactate, potassium gluconate, methionine, selenium. There's definitely a bunch of different things that you can do. And like we talked about the vitamin C with equal amounts of bioflavonoids, hopefully. That is going to make a huge difference. And then try to figure out why you have the inflammation. I mean, that's an option too. Some people are taking boswellia, turmeric, sesame seed oil sometimes will be really helpful for patients, and getting the right amount of fish oil up. Standard Process actually has a really good product called Salagesic, and it's white willow bark. So if you think analgesic for pain, right? So Salagesic and white willow bark is actually it's the natural form of what aspirin was based on. So it's natural form. So it won't have the same kidney and liver issues as taking, aspirin every day. So Salagesic is a great option for pain for some people. It's going to be a little bit more expensive than buying a bottle of 5,000 tablets at Costco, that I see on the conveyor belts. And I'm thinking, okay, if you're buying a bottle that big, you're missing something. So we got to figure this out. So, fish oil naturally is the natural anti-inflammatory. So that will help joints. That'll help all that stuff. But supporting the liver once again to get the body to convert those fats and utilize them into the proper prostaglandin pathways for anti-inflammatory is going to be important. And once again, we'll get into the biochemistry of all that stuff later. But just to start off with, those are some things that you can do. And you may have to go back and listen to this again, depending on what pharmaceutical you're taking and for what, okay? And you can also have your medical doctor too send you out for labs to check levels of magnesium. I check that all the time on patients, is magnesium and calcium and potassium, and checking those to see where they're at for sure. Okay.
And the last one, antacids.
Yep. So there's plenty of people taking antacids. Generally, antacids are given for stomach symptoms, and a lot of times I find that the stomach symptoms are actually being caused by the liver. So if we can support the liver, they don't need the antacids. Our stomach acid should be at a pH of 1 to 2, which is very acidic, and it's to kill any bacteria or viruses or fungus or mold or parasites or anything that's coming into our mouths by way of our food and beverages and stuff like that, so it can kill it. So people go, well, I couldn't live without it. I have to take this. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I mean, you do whatever you need to do. But at the end of the day, you may want to support your liver and see, and it is hard to get off of those if you've been on them a long time. Most of the antacids were actually approved for a 6-week use, and that was it. And I've had patients who've been on them 20 years, and they've been literally telling their proton pumps to just shut up for the last 20 years. And so if they go off of it, it's going to just pick the lid off of a boiling pot, and they're going to be uncomfortable. So also with long-term use of the antacids as well, which could be a month, it could be 2 months, it could be a week, it depends on who you are and what your deficiencies were prior to that. But like Pepcid, Tagamet, Zantac, Prevacid, Prilosec, Tums, Nexium, and even Alka-Seltzer can deplete a lot of the nutrients in your body, because you need a high stomach acid concentration. You need a pH of 1 to 2, which is very acidic, to break down the minerals. Without that, you're not going to break down the minerals appropriately, which also can lead to osteoporosis, osteopenia, all the things that, especially as women, we get these DEXA scans for. And then we're like, oh, we have osteopenia. And I was like, so what have you been doing for this long that your body's not absorbing all those minerals, Yeah. So antacids deplete vitamin B12. Now there's different types of B12. I never encourage patients to take cyanocobalamin, and that's CYANO. That's a cyanide molecule attached to the cobalamin, and it can be neurotoxic for a lot of patients. So I always say go to methylcobalamin if you have an issue with the methylcobalamin. There's hydroxo and adenosylcobalamin, and we'll get into that on another episode as well. but just try to stay away from anything that has cyanocobalamin. A lot of older people are getting B12 injections. They're like, I feel amazing. Look at the packet insert for that. It is like cyanocobalamin nearly all the time I've ever seen it. And look at the other inactive ingredients, such as aluminum as a preservative. So you're injecting that directly into your body, and we all have been seeing research that is linking aluminum in our bodies to potential for Alzheimer's. So, think about all those long-term ramifications. B12, like I said, try not to do cyanocobalamin. Thiamine, which is a B vitamin. Folate, again. Vitamin D, again. Calcium, not calcium carbonate, because that will neutralize stomach acid. Okay, that's basically what Tums is calcium carbonate, which is chalkboard chalk. Iron, zinc, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, and even protein. So if you look at all of those minerals that are depleted, it's because they can't get absorbed because the stomach acid isn't high enough. And people go, no, my stomach acid's too high. I'm like, I have very rarely ever met somebody whose stomach acid is too high. It can happen, but in general, it's coming from liver, and the symptoms are that it's hyperacidity of the stomach. So phosphorus is super, super necessary. It's not one that gets talked about a lot, but it's super necessary for binding to like calcium to help your body utilize that. So if you're depleting your phosphorus levels, it's going to impact your enamel on your teeth. It's going to impact your bones, everything. So it makes a huge difference. And lack of protein, amino acids are huge for muscle strength and for every single thing. They're part of the building blocks for everything that happened in the body. So protein is super, super important. So once again, antacids is B12, thiamine, which is also a B vitamin, folate, which is another B vitamin, vitamin D, calcium, iron, zinc, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, and protein. Okay. So there is a product from Standard Process that I love called Trace Minerals B12, and it's got a lot of those micro minerals in there with a little bit of B12. So that works really well for a lot of people. They can start off, if they're super depleted, if they've been taking these for a long time, they can start off taking 5 or 6 of them a day, even 2, 2, and 2, 3 and 3, or I tend to just all of them at the morning and get it in. Calcium lactate is another form of calcium that you can also take. And then Zypan is betaine hydrochloride, basically, and I believe it has some pepsin in it. And those are digestive, it's basically stomach acid. So sometimes taking that actually will calm it down. So people are taking the antacids thinking they have too much stomach acid, but sometimes I'll actually give stomach acid, if you will, and their heartburn goes away. It doesn't always happen. If it gets worse, then I tell people take a chug of aloe vera, make sure there's nothing else in there. I don't want a bunch of sweeteners and junk in there. Just take a chug. It's very, very, very bitter. And if that calms down the stomach right away, then that's when you know that we need to create a balance of the pH a little bit more.
I know my sister has been awakened like in the middle of the night choking on acid. It's terrifying to hear that because I'm like, I can't even imagine waking up like that and feeling like I can't breathe. I'm choking on a substance in my own body. Like it's crazy. So I'm glad we're talking about this. I think a lot of people can get a ton of value from this episode specifically, not even if it's just for themselves. If not for themselves, then like for me, my family, I need all of them to listen to this episode.
Well, and we'll talk about things that you can do instead of antacids and figure out why you're having this. Your body isn't just going rogue. It's giving you signals of what's happening. So just figuring out what that is going to make a huge difference. And most people know when they get heartburn, they or GERD or whatever, and now there's silent GERD. So but they know what they're eating. They know they're like, oh, I shouldn't have this, but I want to have it anyway. And it's like, well, then your body's telling you what's wrong. Like maybe not do that, or try to figure out how you can work around it or with it or something, So I have to tell you this story. I don't drink alcohol very often. And I decided to have a little bit of Kahlua in my coffee. It was the weekend and I was like, this sounds like a good idea, right? Literally within 3 to 4 minutes of me having a couple of sips, my stomach was burning so bad. I could feel it it was like somebody lit a match and inflamed. I could feel it all the way up. And then it went up into my throat and I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh my gosh, this is insane. So I grabbed some probiotics actually and liver support. And I took that as quickly as possible because I knew the gel caps would be instantly dumped. And within probably a minute and a half of me taking the probiotics, the pain was completely gone.
Whoa.
And then the liver, because I was like, okay, I had some alcohol, so I'm guessing that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
So I had coffee the next day, perfectly fine. Coffee the next day, perfectly fine. Didn't put any Kahlua in it. And then I did Kahlua again, like the next weekend. I was like, well, let me see. Like, this is my little experiment, right? I was like, maybe just where I was. So I did the Kahlua again, and instantly burning within 3 to 4 minutes. Same thing, burning. And I'm like, okay, this is not worth it. This is absolutely not worth it. And so I took some more probiotic, and then what I decided to do was take the liver support. The probiotic was for the instant, just to put the fire out, right? So then now I'm like, okay, now we got the symptoms taken care of, but what is causing it? And I'm like, it's got to be the liver, because I'm not used to drinking alcohol. Like I said, just seemed like a good idea for whatever reason. So I ended up taking a bunch of liver support throughout the day, every day for the next week, and then tried it again because I'm an idiot. No, so because
I wanted to see if that's what it was.
I wanted to see, right? So I actually did the same thing, and I got no burning. Now, I'm not telling you alcoholics out there to so no, but I did the liver support, and I was like, okay, it was my liver needing a little bit more support for whatever I'm doing right now with my body, right? So I realized that's what it was. It's not going to give me, a green card to go ahead and, live it up. But at the end of the day, if I want to have a drink periodically, it shouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, if I have one alcoholic beverage a month, honestly, it's kind of a surprise. So it's not like it's something that I do every day, but periodically, and I'll go 3, 4, 5 months without having any alcohol, because it's just not something I do. It's not something that we do in our household for the most part. So
I'm not a drinker either. I can't stand the taste of alcohol.
yeah, I mean, I'm not, it's just not my thing. But at the end of the day, that went ahead and proved to me that, okay, it was absolutely your liver. So, it wasn't that I had a Pepsid or a Zantac deficiency. I didn't have a PPI, a proton pump inhibitor deficiency.
Yeah.
It was that my body is going to scream at me when there's something going on. So I had to figure out what it was screaming, just like a baby. Why is the baby screaming? Are they changed? Have they been fed? Are they hurt? Like, you try to go through and figure out why you're being screamed at, And so for me, that's what it was. And most people might find the same thing. They might not take enough of their liver support. It's called Detox Plus. It's actually one of our products out of our office, but I took one of them 5 times a day, every day, just because I wanted to hit it hard. And I didn't want to dump the liver all at once by taking a handful of it.
Yeah.
So I continued to take it with plenty of water. And then when I did it that next week, I had 0 symptoms. So like I said, it's not like hey, go out and party like a rock star, but it was like, okay, it's definitely my liver, and it wasn't my stomach. And that's where I think there's a disconnect, because I generally find that acid reflux is 95% of the time liver, and only 5% of the time is the stomach. Yes. Could it be H. pylori? Yes. Could it be another bacterial overgrowth? Yes. Could it be stress from an ulcer? Absolutely. Or ulcer from a stress, So it can be a myriad of different things. I'm not saying it can only be that, but I generally find people on antacids, it's generally a liver issue before it's a stomach issue.
I think that'll be an eye-opening fact for a lot of people, honestly, to hear that. I think that'll be surprising.
So yeah, so using even chlorella or chlorophyll, even something like that, will help the liver. Milk thistle. I use some other liver support that has a combination of NAC, milk thistle, maybe even dandelion with it. There's so many options out there. So just finding the right thing for that person. So, if you try one thing and it was like, oh, that didn't work, well, that might not have been the right combination for you. So for me, it was chlorophyll, NAC. There was a whole host of stuff in this Detox Plus that I used. My energy level went up. My brain clarity came back a little bit. And I was like, ooh, I didn't realize that was there. So my liver gave me a clear signal, and it was the alcohol that just basically pushed it over the edge. Yeah. And then I was able to pull it back and go, okay, let's figure out what's happening here. So
yeah, no, that's great. And I think just having this conversation and talking about, first of all, I think people are going to be surprised to hear that vitamins are getting gobbled up by these medications they're taking. I don't think they have any idea, most people. But I think also talking about what they can take instead to replenish those sources that are being eaten by the drugs or being consumed by the drugs is really helpful. Because I think a lot of people might think, oh, well, then I guess I'll just take a multivitamin and check that box, and offset everything that's being, consumed by all the drugs I'm taking,
And And it can. I mean, multivitamins can be helpful, but most of them have cyanocobalamin. They have synthetic vitamin D. They have DL-alpha tocopherol, which if there's that little L next to that D, that is a synthetic form of vitamin E. And if you don't know how to read the labels, you can't find the right stuff. So half the time when people come in with a multi, I kind of chuck it in the trash. I'm like, I won't even give this to your dog, because they're not quality. There's more and more options than there ever has been. But if you're going to the drugstore and picking up a multi, odds are you're probably better off not even taking it at all. But there are lots and lots and lots of good options now. But even like with cholesterol, if you think about what cholesterol is, it's a fat, and the liver has to break down and convert the fat and utilize it. And it can turn it into a whole bunch of different things. Our fats get converted into hormone precursors even. So if you've got high cholesterol, odds are you probably have low hormone levels because the liver isn't able to do the full conversion. So supporting the liver may not be a bad idea. I'm not telling you to go off any of your medications. So I just want to be clear about that. So I'm not telling you to do that, but there may be another way around the tree, and for the time being, if you're choosing to take those pharmaceuticals for those medications, those drugs, maybe support the liver a little bit more, maybe take some CoQ10, maybe take a little bit more minerals and see if you're sleeping okay. And you're not having muscle spasms and cramps because one of the drugs you're taking is depleting potassium. And so really it's your responsibility as a listener, as a patient and a person. If you're given a pharmaceutical, you need to look up the side effects of each one of those so that you know what's going on. I have patients come in with, let's say, wicked diarrhea, and the side effect is diarrhea on all 5 of the ones they're given. And they're like, oh, I don't know why I have diarrhea. And now they're given an antidiarrheal. I'm like, well, why don't we go back and figure out what the original problem was? Let's try to uncover this. So, looking to see what the pharmaceuticals you're taking and what they deplete. And there's a host of them. So we will go over more because otherwise we'll be here for 5 hours. So
we covered 3 biggies today.
We did.
So, yeah.
So that should help a lot of the people listening that even if you're not taking them, like are your parents taking them, or your grandparents taking them, and supporting that liver, if you're taking any pharmaceuticals, is generally the first step, period, regardless.
It's a huge and very necessary step. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Jen. This is another educational episode. I'll be having my family listen to this one too, because they need to hear it. Thank you again for your wisdom and knowledge and expertise as always. If you guys want to join our school community, we have an amazing community on school. I'll put the link in the show notes. And also you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to see you. And until next time, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That wraps up another episode of Speaking Holistically. Thank you for listening. We hope today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration to take charge of your health. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, be sure and join the Speaking Holistically school community by clicking the link in the show notes. There, you'll get access to daily podcast episodes, weekly live Q&As, educational content, and so much more. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, be well, stay curious, and keep speaking holistically.